Hello, Brian. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Wonderful. How are you, Elisha?
I'm doing quite fine, my man. And thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Brian, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, my man, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest it in yourself. And oftentimes, Brian, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, Brian, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Brian, just recently I was on that same road, and this time around, hmm, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me, because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes now, Brian, I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day. I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing brand that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your knowledge, your philosophies, the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions. These stuffs are beautiful. And just before you got that request from me, my man, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Brian is doing. And not only me now, because, I don't want to be selfish, and even with the audience. And here we are today with the incredible Brian. So thank you so very much for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I'm excited to benefit from you as well.
Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today, Brian, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, my man, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Brian on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, my man, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Brian, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, my man, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Brian got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Brian, over to you.
How I got here and no pressure. Like, you just put a bunch of pressure on me, man, to be like
So sorry.
insightful and interesting. No, it's okay. I'm kidding. Uh, I'll pretend for your show that I'm insightful and interesting. I got that, Matt. I can do that. I appreciate you having me here. First off, thank you. I think maybe a little bit about my backstory is, and I don't know how far back you want to go, but what I typically answer for that question when most people ask me is, I started off like everybody else. Like I grew up, yes, I was fortunate when I grew up. Like I wasn't rich or anything, but I was in a middle class family, right? Definitely not poor or struggling. And so that afforded me some things that many other people don't have access to as they're growing up. But I still like bought my first truck from my dad. It wasn't given anything, right? Like I had to pay him for his truck. I had to go out and get, I had jobs when I was 13 picking pachysandras in fields, like backbreaking work at 6 a.m. in the morning for like $5 an hour, right? Like, I mean, not the worst thing in the world, but my point is that I was out there actually earning my keep and learning how to solve problems, make my own money, create my own way in the world, right? And I think that's a very important skill for all people to learn as early as you possibly can. And that doesn't mean it has to be entrepreneurship. It just means it has to be, this is what I have to do. This is what it takes to forge my path in the world, whatever that may be. And so that's where I started with, call it regular jobs, I guess, right? Normal jobs that everybody else would have. And I did that for probably up till 24, 25 years old, to the point where I was working for Time Warner Cable as an installation technician. And I threw out my shoulder, like I partially tore my rotator cuff in one of these shoulders. And so I went through a whole situation with Time Warner where they didn't want to pay me workers' comp, and it was a huge fight. And so when I was off and couldn't do anything, my shoulder was recovering. I went into an Apple store, picked up a laptop, and taught myself how to do, it was iWeb back then, but taught myself how to do the basics of web design. And that's kind of what led to where I am today. So we can jump into specifics if you want, but I want to get to your questions because they sound like they're going to be really good.
Beautiful, my man. And that's a great one. Wow. Age 13. That's amazing. I love that. That spirit of going out there and making things work. I love that. So let's pick the first question from here. Are you ready for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let us talk about AI. Okay. So do you think AI can really replace call centers without losing the human touch?
Yes. And the answer to that in an expanded way is that the AIs are able to be, I think, more empathetic than a lot of the humans who you talk to in call centers, primarily not because they're actually better than humans. Like on a one-to-one human, not forget about the job, right? Human to AI, the AIs are not better than humans. But the humans who work in the call centers, who in many cases, let's be fair, probably don't love the jobs that they're doing, but also, more importantly, are restricted by a lot of the companies they work for to being only able to answer certain questions in certain departments and not really think outside the box and solve the problem for the people that they're talking to, leads the AI to, because the AI will be integrated with all the systems, allows the AI to retain that human touch because it can fake emotion. We'll call it that, right? Like it can fake emotion, it can fake inflection, it can fake caring, but its ultimate goal is to solve your problem because that AI will have access to more systems than the human will, which is a whole nother debate, right? Like the human should have probably way more power than they do in a call center, case by case. But I think that, yeah, absolutely, it's ready to replace the human today.
I never knew that, my man. Okay, so let's proceed. All right. So let's talk about campgrounds. Okay. So how can campgrounds compete with OTAs in 2025?
How can campgrounds compete with OTAs in 2025? I think it's interesting is if you look at the campground space, and I want to start here, the campground space has lagged behind OTA adoption versus the hotels since really the onset of OTAs. And what I mean by that is you'll find almost every Marriott hotel or Hilton hotel or independent hotel on either an Expedia.com or a Booking.com today, because that's the distribution that those hotels both married themselves to in the beginning and now are dependent on to be discovered on the internet, because there's so many people who know Booking.com, who know Expedia.com, who know I don't even know if Travelocity is still around. I feel like it is, but I use booking.com, so you can see how much I'm familiar with these other places. But in the campground industry, it's lagged behind. And I think a lot of that is because of the stereotypically older demographic who own RVs, the baby boomers who travel and perhaps haven't adopted as many of those platforms for camping. There are not a lot of places outside of maybe like a camp spot marketplace or a hip camp or something like that, where you can go list your RV sites online. Like Expedia has no category for that. Booking.com has no category for that. And so that's limited the adoption, and I think in some ways now benefited the campgrounds to where consumers are still used to finding their campgrounds by going directly to the campground websites. But then the second piece of that question is the OTAs themselves, I think, are in a very interesting position with the advent of AI. Because what we don't know right now, and we will know very shortly, is how artificial intelligence like ChatGPT and everything else, Gemini and Claude, is going to surface a place to book. Like if you go to, using our hotel example, because hotels are so widely spread out across OTAs, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, I'm planning a trip to San Antonio or Atlanta or Detroit or wherever, right? And you ask it to find you hotels, right now, we don't know whether, like, all the evidence that I've seen leads me to believe that the AI is going to bring back direct hotel websites versus OTAs, which benefits even the Marriotts and the Hiltons, but also benefits the campgrounds. Now, I don't know how that's going to work long term. I have to imagine at some point there's going to be some kind of advertising that ChatGPT does that might end up forcing Booking.com into there, and just picking on them for one example, right? But if you think back to the reasons that OTAs were invented, OTAs were basically invented because Google sucks, right? Because you have to ask a couple keywords to Google, and you can't specify in Google how many adults or kids or pets, or if you want a bathroom or a full kitchen, and so then you have to go to a website that allows you to check all those boxes and filter all those things. But in a world where AI knows all that about you and can browse the websites for you, it'll be interesting to see how OTAs survive.
That's so true. And I got that. Wow. And you've just opened my eyes to something very interesting. Okay, you mentioned websites while you were talking. So, how should campgrounds websites be structured to convert more visitors?
So that's I like your questions because they're double answers that I need to start with one and then lead to the other like I did, right? I think the way to convert more visitors is to speak directly to them. And here's what I mean by that. There's a lot of emphasis in all small business websites, but especially with the marketing agencies that are being hired by these companies, to just put up a pretty website. Let's provide the most basic information we can about your coffee shop or your accounting firm or your campground or whatever, right? Enough that we can get somebody there. They can look at some pretty photos that you took 17 years ago that aren't representative of the actual experience today. And they can get enough information to make an informed decision and maybe click that book now button. I think as you move into, or as I think we move into a world now, especially in campgrounds, but hotels too, where it's an uncertain economic future, right? And people are going to be much more careful about how they spend their vacation dollars. In that world, I think you need to be more convincing. You need to be willing to sell an experience or sell what makes your hotel or campground different than all the others. Because it's no longer a situation where people are taking 3 or 4 vacations a year. They might be taking one, and that one vacation might be shorter than any of the 4 they previously took before. So that money is very precious to them. It's coming out of their pocket, right? So I think it's an interesting thing to think about from a perspective of I want to know who my ideal customer is for any given business. What does that profile of that person look like? And then what are the types of buyer personas that are coming to the website? In the case of a campground, maybe it's a solo mom with a daughter who's traveling. Maybe it's a retired couple. Maybe it's a husband and wife who like to go adventuring and hiking on nearby trails. But those types of buyer personas, which you can all get, by the way, through very smart prompting in AI. So you get these profiles, and then you write your copy on your website, and you inform the pages that you present on your website based on the language that these people want to hear and see and read. Not to trick them, but to gently persuade them that these are some things that, hey, like, we're speaking your language. This is for you. It's not for everyone, because for everyone is not, it's not working, right? It can work, but it's not going to work in an economy where people are choosy. So for you in different ways, and speak to those different audiences. But then the second piece of that question is, eventually and very quickly, you're not going to have to convince the humans. You're going to have to convince the agents, the AI agents working on behalf of the humans. Like, and you can do this in ChatGPT already. If you go into ChatGPT, you can click on, and I think it's in the free mode. It might not be, but it's for sure in the $20 a month version of ChatGPT. You can click on agent mode, and you can go say, plan me a trip to our same cities we use as an example, San Antonio, Atlanta, Detroit, whatever, right? Plan me a trip. And it will go out and browse all the websites for you and bring all the information back to you. And you never have to go to their website at all, except maybe to book. Which now is changing too, because OpenAI just released the ability to purchase things inside of ChatGPT, I think 2 days ago or last week. So eventually you're going to have to present your website in an informational way to the agent so that it knows enough about your website to be able to judge and then take that back to its human and decide that you are one of the top places it should present and eventually book at. And so I think the way that you convert more people long term is the psychology that we talked about, because the psychology will also apply to the individual agent working on behalf of their human. That's where it will go, right? It's not there yet, but it'll go there. You'll have your own AI that knows you and how many kids you have and where you like to travel and what time of year you like to travel and when you can get off work and all the things, right? At that point, then I think you expand the amount of information on your website to maybe even 15, 20, 50 pages for a small business. And a campground, for example, could have a page per site type. A hotel could have a page per type of room. Because the more information you present to that agent, the more opportunity you have to be the answer to a question. And if you're an answer to a question, you can be considered by an agent or a consumer to buy.
These are beautiful stuffs, I tell you. And you've been saying some very incredible stuffs that I found really, really insightful. You're just so good at what you do, man. Wow. So while you were talking earlier, you mentioned that you got a laptop and you started learning web design by yourself. Can you talk to us more about that? Are you still into it?
Boy, you're testing my memory. I'm old, man. I think no, like I've always had an interest in technology. I've always had an interest in the internet and stuff like that. And so I navigated it. I used it like in high school. I was part of, like, they used to call it internet relay chat, stuff like that, back before we had Facebook and everything else. And so I've always had an interest in that. And it was just kind of one of those things where, like, I went and I bought the laptop. I think after I bought the laptop, I decided to teach myself web design. I can't remember why I actually bought the laptop. It wasn't to do that, but and then taught myself web design because what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a path to try to make more money through something that I loved and enjoyed. And so that was the reason actually I bought the laptop. Sorry, that was the gap. And then I figured out I needed to do that through the web. But the two things that I had enjoyed. One is I had worked for CBS, like a local television affiliate in Cleveland, as like an editor for videos and things like that for a number of years. And so I really enjoyed doing the video piece of it and editing. And I was pretty good at it, maybe selfishly. I don't know if my bosses at the time thought I was good at it, but they kept me around. So, and so I was an editor. And then I really enjoyed like the storytelling aspect of travel, of, you know, getting out, seeing new places. At that time, I had never been to Europe. I had never been anywhere around the world outside of the United States. couple times to Canada, and if you count Cancun on a cruise for like a couple hours when I was 13 with my parents, which I don't think counts. I don't think that is. So I'd been almost nowhere, and so travel and the whole world fascinated me. And so I tried to combine these two pieces together of I want to combine my love of travel with my love of video. And so this is about the time like travel blogging was really becoming popular in 2008, 2009-ish, somewhere around there, right? And so instead of writing, I decided I would do travel videos. And so we did this. Like my ex-girlfriend at the time, I had a stepdaughter, and we traveled for probably 4 to 6 years on the
Wow.
road in a Jeep. We didn't have a place to live. Like
Whoa.
we were using my grandma's house as a home base in Florida, but we were literally on the road 24/7, moving. And then sometimes we would fly places, but we would work with convention and visitors bureaus. We would work with museums, sports teams. Like these videos are all still up on YouTube
Wow.
somewhere, right? Like we go into zoos, and we wouldn't charge them for these videos because the whole intention was for them to be editorial and unbiased, right? And then the hope was that I would make my money off YouTube. Well, I got a couple million views on YouTube. It never really ended up paying the bills. So,
Wow.
but what it led to was in the course of doing those videos, I started doing videos for KOA Campgrounds. Cold called their head of public relations, Mike Gast, at the time. He's retired now. And it took me a couple months to get him to allow me to do it. But he sent me to one of his campgrounds in Sugarloaf Key in the Florida Keys. We were in a tent on the ground, and we did a whole video of his resort down there. It was KOA corporate owned property. And he loved it so much that he sent us up and down the East Coast of the United States. I think it's I-95, and we did like 90 different KOAs, somewhere around there, right? The number might be a little bit off, but it was a lot of KOAs with corporate vouchers that they gave us to stay for free. Originally, it was in tents, and then we moved up to cabins. And that was how we got started. Came across an owner in West Virginia. His name was Charles Dameron. I don't think he owns the park anymore, and he was always so shy when I used to tell his name and give him credit for the whole thing. But he told us that he had a work camper. So work camper in campgrounds is someone that they'll hire to work on the site, do maintenance, various things around the property, and they'll basically trade out a site for them. So you can come stay in your RV in exchange for working, right? So that's a work camper. So he had a work camper who was posting on social media for him. This is back when nobody knew the difference between, well, some people did. Most people didn't know the difference between a friend profile and a business page, right? And so this person didn't know what they were doing. And I was like, well, maybe I can help you with this. I do this for my own company. And he was paying the work camper $10 a week. So I just made up a number. This is like in a late night conversation outside his cabin. I'm like, all right, $50 a month, like $10 more than he's paying the guy, right? I'll do this for you. And 33 KOAs later, nobody told me no. I just kept pitching everybody as we went along. And so then here we are.
Amazing, amazing. It's a very beautiful one. You always discover a problem, then you solve it, and you make money along the line. That's a smart one. I love that.
Well, here's the interesting part, Elisha, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but just one thing to your point, right? There's a lot of that going around about entrepreneurship, like, and I don't want you to look at me and think like I just figured out a problem and then solved it. There was like 7 to 9 years in between there where I made no money and I worked 120 hours a week and I failed and I screwed up and I messed up and I screwed up again and I messed up and I screwed up again. And so like it's not just I had the answer and it magically came to me and I was lucky and then I solved a problem. It was I started here and stumbled into so many things and came across so many coincidences and had so much good luck and good fortune. And yes, I made a lot of that and I got up, but like it requires that perseverance. It's not no one who has ever built a business from scratch, not the people who have inherited one. No one who's ever built a business from scratch has just come up with an idea and made it happen the next day.
No.
There's always a
That's
journey.
not possible. It's always a journey. Exactly, my man. So to bring this to an end, all right, for folks who like to learn more about the beautiful stuff you're doing, or let's say we've got some campgrounds entrepreneurs and they're seeking for advice, what would you like to leave them with? and they want to reach out to you, how can that be possible?
I think I'd like to leave anybody who's watching this with always just try to be one step ahead. And you'll only be right 50% of the time if you're lucky. But if you pay attention to what's going around you in the world, and you explore, like AI is the thing of the moment now, right? If you explore AI, if you touch AI, if you feel it, if you read and you watch videos on YouTube and you start to understand the shifts that are likely coming in society, that positions you to have a chance to be somebody who can figure out something that you fail at and try again and fail at and try again and get to a point where like you can make. So just be curious, I think, is my message to everybody. And if you never stop being curious, then you'll always know something more than you did yesterday. And if you want to get a hold of me, I'm insiderperks.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody, help with advice, just bring value. I'm not here to sell anything. I just want to make the world better. Like you, Elisha. I appreciate you having me on.
Beautiful, my man, and that's a great one. So that's gonna be the end of the show, Brian. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you.
Thank you.